is not counted as a truck. However, a vehicle with 2 axles and 6 tires was counted as a truck. An example of this might be a heavy-duty Ford F-350 with dual rear wheels. Buses were not counted as trucks. ATR counts were collected continuously from Saturday, July 9, 2011 to Tuesday, July 19, 2011 at both locations. We also received a video recording of vehicles was also performed at both locations on Thursday, July 14, 2011 and on Tuesday, July 19, 2011 for a 12-hour period from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So we know exactly what went through there during that time frame. This information was reviewed and translated into hard copy information for identification and description of the vehicles. We, the town of North Reading, is in possession of the video information. I'd like to point out that the traffic counts were done by a local firm, Accurate Counts. Mr. Steve Delisle, he runs a little shop at the corner of Mount Vernon and Park Street, and he does work for a lot of the major consultants that work with Mass DOT. Just that he's a North Reading business, I want to give him some well-deserved accolades. The results of the study are as follows. For New Street, the average weekly truck traffic works out to be about 7.8%. The average weekday truck traffic on New Street is 10.4%, which sort of states the obvious that very little truck traffic goes on those streets on Saturday and Sunday on the weekend. The average weekly truck traffic for Chestnut Street is 6.1%, and average weekday truck traffic on Chestnut Street is 7%. Both these roadway segments exceed the Mass DOT 5% warrant. We also pulled out some of the information and looked at if a night exclusion would be warranted. The average weekly night traffic on New Street worked out to be 3.5%. The average weekly night traffic on Chestnut Street is at 3%. These do not meet the 5% warrant. However, on some of the 8-hour periods, the 5% was exceeded. There are some nights where truck traffic does exceed the 5%. Mass DOT may entertain a nighttime exclusion, but that's something that would be subjective, and it would be subjective pending their review. What we did find was 96% of the trucks going east on Chestnut Street towards Haverhill Street go south on New Street. They use New Street as the cut through to get on Haverhill Street. 46% of the total traffic going east on Chestnut Street goes south on New Street. It seems as though most of these heavy trucks are heading down Haverhill Street into Reading, more than likely to avoid the I-93 128 interchange. That's speculative on my part, but that's the way it seems.
So like just again, so when the crossing at Chestnut and Haverhill Street is what percentage? Is not using New Street? Would that be?
Well, 4%, yeah. 36% of the trucks going west on Chestnut Street, that would be towards Park Street, are from New Street northbound, heading from Haverhill Street away from Reading. And 44% of the total traffic going west on Chestnut Street are from northbound traffic from New Street. You know, looking at the videos for the 2 days that they recorded, 17% of the truck traffic is definitely local traffic. DPW stickers, Moynihan stickers, RMLD stickers on the truck. 56% is most likely pass-through traffic, aggregate industries, benefit units down here. And 27%, we really couldn't identify. They could be pass-through traffic, they could be customers to Moynihan's, we don't know. The trucks weren't identified. And that sort of sums up the traffic study.
Once we determine the warrant or the volume of traffic exceeds the 5%, the next step is to come up with alternate routes. So we have alternate routes. You probably got a tiny map you couldn't read. I would propose we take a break to look at the map and the neighbors look at the map. If that would be okay, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
We identified 5 alternates. One would be, instead of going down Chestnut Street and New Street, continue east on Park Street, get to Ryers, take a hard right on Haverhill Street. Because the way the regulation, we're supposed to find a route that starts and ends at the same, on the same street. Alternate 1. Alternate 2 would be trucks to go down Route 28 or Main Street to Franklin, Francis, and Reading, cut over.
Franklin.
And I'll explain the pros and cons of some of these. Alternate 3 is basically go straight down Main Street to 129 in downtown Reading. Turn to the right, head eastbound to get to 128. Alternate 4 would continue east on Route 62, go over to Middleton, and then into Linfield, go through downtown Littleton, Linfield, excuse me. Got 128, and alternate 5 was to go directly out to 93 via route, primarily Concord Street, then south either to the 93, 129 interchange and cut across through Reading, or all the way down to the 128, 93 interchange. Criteria of Mass Highway, there's 3 situations they tell us they allow. Number 1, if it's totally within the community itself, it's the community's right to do that. Number 2, if it goes outside of our boundaries, if it's on a state-numbered road, we do not need the permission of our abutting community to propose that to Mass Highway or Mass DOT. Alternate 3 is if it goes on a non-numbered road, i.e. Francis or Franklin Street, we need their written permission. So, we had a series of meetings. I met with the CPC, I met with most of the fire, police, Council on Aging, and several other town departments, and to see were there any other routes we should consider, number 1, and what were the pros and cons of those, and I believe I've sent you out that spreadsheet with those. Of the 5 I've mentioned, the 2 that go through off of a state-numbered road, that's alternate 2 and 4, were thought not to be feasible proceeding forward. So, and there are other pros and cons in the spreadsheet I gave you. It talks about how many houses are impacted with the current situation, how many houses and schools and other facilities are affected. So there are pros and cons to every route. So we are probably, all the town departments, we're at a position now where we see 5 potential options. Option A, do nothing. Leave the situation as is. Option 2 is it's the alternate 1, which would go down east on Park Street, then turn right, to go south on Haverhill Street. And 2 other options that go down either out to 93 south to 129 or down Main Street, Route 28 to cut over. And from talking, one alternative that Sergeant Romeo came up with is potentially making New Street one-way. One-way streets, it's a local thing. We don't need Mass Highway approval to do that. So that's one option that came. It's interesting. But as you look at some of these things, though, by doing that, you effectively still, it kicks you into alternate A. Alternate 1. So people are going to be going straight up Haverhill Street, turn right, turn left onto Park Street. On Thursday, the school department had done a minor traffic study as part of the high school project, and they provided me the data. Our study, we got, in the summertime, 11 days of data in July. They did 2 days of data monitoring on Park Street near Dodge Street on February 8th and 9th. And just to summarize what Mike had told you already, for weekday traffic now, eastbound on Chestnut Street, it's about 163 trucks, westbound about 257. And New Street, again, weekday northbound, which is coming north from Reading, is 101 trucks, and southbound going outbound is 152 trucks. Park Street, however, has eastbound 410 trucks, quite a lot more volume as you expect, and the westbound has 210 trucks. So, assuming we now, you also got a memo, it was kind of an email summarizing our meeting and each department's concerns, and there was a series of questions, and one question was, this one was, we didn't have any current data at that time of that meeting, but we have it now for this location. But if we'd implement a truck restriction on Chestnut Street and went with alternate one, the trucks in front of the high school essentially going eastbound, that would be going to Milton. Now it's at the maximum of 573 per day, which is a 40% increase. And heading westbound, which is heading towards 93, it goes up to 468 or 487 trucks, which is a 120% increase in truck traffic in front of the schools for that alternate. So where we are now is questions and answers is the next step is we need to, the town decide what we do want to select, what option we want to do. And then Mike and myself put together a variety of detailed descriptions of the roadway and its construction and suitability for truck traffic. So the task now is to decide which route the town would like to go. That's where we are right now.
Is there any breakdown or any idea as far as from a time of day standpoint for the biggest amount of volume of traffic is? I'm just thinking in terms of coinciding with school traffic, you know?
The trucks tend to peak, I looked at the summer stuff, and it tend to peak around 7 o'clock. A little before noon time, I think 3 o'clock. It was almost like 3-hour increments. So our data was in summertime, so we got the peak from the construction season standpoint, but not during the schools. Whereas what the school department did was during February, which is school season. So Mike and I are not traffic engineers, but you would think it's apples and orange comparison.
Dick, there were a couple things that were going on in that period of time. There's construction on 93, there's construction on Route 28. A lot of these trucks assume we're trying to bypass that intersection. And even now that a lot of the work is done, there's still probably an advantage during certain hours of the day to bypass that intersection. It would seem to me that taking away an easy route from them through town, you know, even if they end up just going down 62 and making a right turn on Haverhill Street, that's not as easy, and maybe it would discourage them, and they may decide to start to go back to the normal route of staying on the highway. It's all subjective, obviously, but
And that's the hard part at this point. It's not a technical, it's kind of a subjective issue. Which route do we like to go along with? And we're not looking for decisions today. We're just looking to present information
you know,
to
well,
yourselves.
we would
and the
have to have a
residents.
public hearing to make a decision, so.
So the next step, once we make that decision, Mike and I put together this report detailing all the objectives we submitted. And it usually takes between 60 to 90 days to get an answer. Because it goes to the district in Arlington first. Once they okay it, it goes to Boston, and Boston approves it. So that's where we are now is once we have to think about, well, public hearing on what we want to do, the town. And
Mr. Chair.
when Mike and I have the information, the decision is made, we'll put together the packet and submit it.
Jeffrey?
Yes. To take off what I think you were saying, that if we chose or look at the Haverhill Street, Route 62, Park Street corner, that it might dissuade them. When we make a decision on this, can we change our decision? Or are we stuck with that? Or do we have to go through the whole process all over again?
This is, well, I'll give you background for the town of North Reading, by the way. There's only 2 truck exclusions that are currently in existence, out up front here and on Mill Street. The town tried to apply for one in 93 for Park Street between Winter and Main Street, and was shot down. So, to be answered, I don't have a lot of experience with it, and Mike, we don't have a lot of